What's going on, everybody, and welcome back to the channel. So last week I put out a video on GMRS, or the General Mobile Radio Service, and I had some questions about GMRS repeaters. Now there's plenty of information out there, but I figured I would show you how to go about programming these radios for repeater use. Now it's very similar on most radios. I'm actually going to program two today. I'm going to program both of the end radios. The ones in the middle here, I will show you the menu structure so you can see where in the menu you would go to program these. But I'm actually going to I actually unprogrammed the two end radios so I can show you how to do it on both of those. I chose those particular radios because the screens are easy to see on camera. Some of the radios I have, it's very hard to see the display on camera. So generally speaking, the way it works on one radio is very similar to the way it works on the rest of the radios. The menu structures are very similar radio to radio and manufacturer to manufacturer. They're not identical. So I've got four radios in front of me. On the left, I have a Radioddity GM30 Plus. Radioddity was nice enough to send me a pair of those. I will be doing a review on those, but I want to get some time under my belt with them first. I'm not comfortable with just getting a radio, having it for a couple of days, playing with it, and then doing a review. I want to actually use it in the field first. And I'm not going to just sit here and unbox a radio and be like, oh, look at the cool features. Here you go. Here's a review. I want to get out and actually use the things for a while first. So it'll be coming, but it'll be a little bit. I have a BTEC GMRS V2. That is, for all intents and purposes, a Baofeng radio. So the menu structure in that is going to be identical to the vast majority of Baofeng radios out there. So when you see how to do it on that, it's going to be the same on pretty much any other Baofeng radio. There are a few exceptions, but for the most part, they all work the same way. Then I have my Wouxun KG UV9G Pro. And then on the far right, we have our Wouxun KG S88G. All right, so before we talk about how to program these, I do want to talk a little bit about some terminology you guys need to know. So let me get the radios out of the way here. So first, we need to talk a little bit about something called tones. Okay, now this sheet I actually had Google Gemini generate me. I know all this information, but it's easy to just plug this into AI and have it spit out the information for you. Okay, so let me talk a little bit about what tones are. Okay, so you're going to hear CT, CSS, DCS, PL, DPL. Let's talk about what all those things mean. Okay, so CT, CSS stands for Continuous Tone Coded Squelch System. All right. Basically what that is a sub-audible tone that either the repeater or the radio on the other end is going to be listening for. And if it doesn't hear that tone, it's not going to open the squelch and allow you to hear the transmission. Okay? DCS is digitally coded squelch. Okay, so digital coded squelch is the same idea, but it's a digital tone instead of an analog tone. All right, it does the same thing, it's just digital. PL and DPL, that's actually a Motorola thing. PL is private line and DPL is digital private line. Let me talk for just a minute about privacy tones. There is no such thing as privacy on any of these radios. The only time you would ever get privacy is if you were using an LMR radio and it was encrypted. And again, you have to have an LMR license and have LMR frequencies assigned to you for that, to be able to do that within the regulations. When they talk about privacy tones, understand that what these tones do, when I program a tone into one of these radios, what it does is it keeps the receiver from making sound come out of the speaker unless it hears that tone. That does not mean that when I transmit, when I push this push to talk and talk, anybody who's on that frequency or on GMRS on that channel will hear me whether or not they have privacy tones enabled. The privacy tones, it's a misnomer. They're not private. All they do is keep other people from interrupting your conversation. They do not keep you from hearing or keep other people from hearing you. So please understand that when you hear people talk about privacy tones, there is nothing private about this. Right? This is all open, over the air, unencrypted. Anybody can hear you. Okay, so if you're transmitting on GMRS channel 13 and you're talking and you have a tone set, anybody who's on channel 13 will hear you. However, if they try to call you, unless they have the same tone programmed into their radio, you won't hear them. Okay? So the idea with a repeater is that tone That tone is going to allow you to open the squelch of the repeater. The repeater is not going to pay attention to your radio unless you have the correct tone programmed. You can talk into it all you want, but the repeater is not going to rebroadcast or retransmit your transmission. I shouldn't say broadcast because it's not broadcasting, it's transmitting. There is a difference, but it's not going to retransmit your transmission unless it hears the correct tone. All right. So when you see CTCSS, think of that as that's analog. Okay, it's an analog signal that is used to keep other people from transmitting on your frequency and blocking your communications. DCS is just a digital version of the same thing. Now, another thing you got to understand is, even if you have tones programmed in your radio so you're not going to hear other people, if I am on a little 5-watt handheld and I'm on, let's say, channel 17, and I'm trying to talk to my buddy, and there's somebody with a mobile rig on channel 17 also who's putting out 50 watts, even though I can't hear them, their transmit power is going to be so much higher than mine that they're going to still interfere with my transmissions. All right, they're going to just bury my S meter on my radio. It's going to, it may cause issues to the point where you can't hear the other person you're trying to talk to. You just won't be able to hear the person transmitting. That doesn't mean that transmission's not still in the air, and for all intents and purposes, jamming your signal. Okay, it's not actually jamming of the transmission, but that's essentially what it would be doing. So I want to make sure that people understand that those codes, when we talk about these tones, PL tones, CTCSS tones, DCS tones, DPL tones, they all do the same thing, and they are not private in any way, shape, or form. So I want to make sure you understand that right off the top. Now, when we look at tones for GMRS, you're going to see when we look at a repeater, it's going to give us tones for both transmit and receive. Normally on ham radio, you're only going to get a tone for transmit, so you can open the squelch to the repeater. We'll talk about why in a second. The other thing you need to understand is something called repeater offset. Offset simply is the difference between your transmit frequency and your receive frequency. So if we look at this, here are our GMRS repeater channels. So for instance, if we look at repeater channel 15, our receive frequency is 462.550. Our transmit frequency is 467.550. The offset on GMRS is always 5 megahertz up. So it's plus 5 megahertz. In other words, I'm always transmitting 5 megahertz higher than I'm listening. So I'm transmitting in to the repeater at, in this case, 467.550, and I'm listening on 462.550. So my radio, when you look at the display, it will say 462.550. When I key the radio up and transmit, you'll see the frequency change to 467.550 if you are looking at the frequency. So for instance, if I take one of these radios and I turn it on, all right, you will see right now it's just giving me a channel name. You're not seeing a frequency, okay? If I turn some of these other radios on, so like let's take this radiosity because this one will show it because I have it set up to show frequency. So let me get this to focus on this radio here. All right, you can see we're on 462.550. Okay, so this is repeater channel 15. If you see there's a little plus right here, that means that's our repeater shift that's plus. And if I key this up, so watch what happens. So I'm going to, we're on 462.550. This is repeater channel 15. If I key it up, watch what the frequency does. 467.550. So receive 462.550, transmit 467.550. Okay, so when we talk about repeater offset, that's what we're talking about. On a GMRS, it's simple. It's always plus 5. Like I said, on ham radio, it's different. It depends on the band, and it depends on where you are in the band. It might be plus or minus. Those offsets are different on different bands. The other thing you've got to understand about GMRS, so let's take repeater channel 15, which is one we're going to be programming today. If you look at a receive frequency, it's 462.550. Transmit frequency is 467.550. Now this is repeater channel 15. If we come up here and look at channel 15, look at our frequency, 462.550. Our receive frequency is the same, which means if somebody's using their radio simplex, in other words, radio on channel 15, they are transmitting on the same frequency we're receiving on for the repeater. So unless we have tones from the repeater set, we're going to hear anybody talking on channel 15 also. All right. So when you look at GMRS repeaters, So let me bring my computer over here. Let's take a look. I've got my GMRS open. I'll try to do this so we don't get a glare here. Let me turn that ceiling light off real quick here because that's going to cause a glare on my screen, which I don't want. So let me shut this off real quick. And nope, I can't do it for my phone. I forgot I've got regular bulbs in this light. Hold on. Sorry about that. There we go. That's better. So if we look at this page, so this is the My GMRS page for the closest repeater to me. Okay, so it's called Endwell 55. 55 is the last digits of the repeater. So I know that 55, if we look at our chart, is repeater channel 15. All right, so it shows you our location. It shows you who the owner is. You'll see it's an open system. In other words, anyone can use it. Here's our frequency. Now notice we have an input tone and an output tone of 141.3 hertz. Okay. On a ham radio, normally all you will have is the tone to break the squelch on the repeater. You will not have a tone back to your radio. But because GMRS shares those frequencies with simplex, the repeater will have the same tone. You're going to program a tone so that you're only hearing the repeater and you're not hearing people on simplex also. Okay, you can see this repeater's online. The range is about 10 miles. It was last updated about 7 months ago. So this is, My GMRS is probably the best place to find your repeaters. You can do it on like Repeater Book 2, but a lot of them aren't listed. There are a lot more GMRS repeaters listed on My GMRS than there are on Repeater Book. So with that in mind, let's get the computer out of here. Let's go ahead and, oops, sorry, didn't mean to bump the camera. You can tell I'm an amateur at this. Let's go ahead and program up one of these radios. So I'm going to show you how this actually works. So again, our tone on this particular repeater is 141.3, both in and out. Okay? So if I turn this radio on, make sure I can actually focus on the screen here. So you can see I'm currently on repeater channel 15, right? So here's repeater 16. That's GMRS 22. Now, if I turn up one, you'll see it says CTC right here. That's because I have repeater channel 16 programmed with tones already. You can see the plus, that's our repeater offset. If I go down to a simplex channel, so here's GMRS 22, which is simplex, you'll see that plus disappears because we don't have a repeater offset, okay? So I'm going to go into repeater 15 and I'm going to hit menu. And then I'm going to scroll through the menu until I find Receive CTCSS. And I'm going to go in here and I'm going to set this to 141.3. So 141.3, I'm going to hit menu. There's our DCS tones. This particular one doesn't have a DCS tone. Here's our transmit CTCSS tone. So again, I'm going to set this to 141.3. All right. So now I have my transmit transmit CTCSS set to 141.3. And my receive CTCSS set to 141.3. Now, when I exit out of here and go back to repeater channel 15, you will see now it says CTC in the top corner. This is now programmed to work on repeater channel 15. All right. So we'll do the same thing on this GM30. It's this GM30 Plus. Get it to focus on the screen here. Come on. Too close. Okay. So again, you can see I'm on 462550. That's repeater channel 15. I'm going to go into menu. And I'm going, I wish this would stay focused on the screen. I'm going to scroll down until I see program channel. I'm going to hit menu. And I'm going to scroll down. There's received CTCSS. And I'm just going to set this to 141.3. Hit menu to save it. We're going to go down to transmit CTCSS. Same thing. Whoops. 141.3. Save. And now, if you look on the screen, you will see that we have our little plus for our repeater offset. Whoop, lost our focus. Sorry about that. We've got our little plus for our repeater offset, and you can see this little C in the circle. That tells me that we now have this programmed for are CTCSS tones. So these radios are both programmed up and ready to go. So I'll show you where that is. So here's that Wouxun KGUV 9G Pro. So same idea, I'm gonna go menu. You can see I'm on repeater channel 15, menu, and I'm gonna do the same thing. I'm gonna go until I find transmit CTC. You can see I've got it set to 141.3. Receive CTC, 141.3. Okay, same idea. I just go into my menu, enter those tones. If we go into the BTEC, and again, like I said, if you've got, let's say you've got a Baofeng, like a UV5R or something that you're programming up for GMRS use. All right, so you can see I'm currently on repeater channel 15. You can see it says CTC right here in the corner. All right, so see it says CT right there in the corner. That means we have this program for tones. You can see our repeater shift right there. Again, if I go into menu, we scroll up. There's our received DCS, received CTCSS. You can see I got it set for 141.3. Transmit DCS, transmit CTCSS. And again, there are no DCS tones for this particular repeater. They're all analog tones, so I don't have any digital tones set. That's it. Once you have them set, it's ready to go. So these are all programmed up and ready to go on GMRS channel 15. So what we're gonna do is we're gonna go out. I'm gonna walk up the road a little ways until I can get to a spot where I can hit the repeater. I've got to walk down the road that way and up the hill a little bit so I can hit this repeater. We'll go ahead and we'll go for a little walk and we'll see if we can hit the repeater. Now you're not going to hear much. All you'll see is the received signal strength indicator on this blink as it opens the squelch in the repeater. You're not going to hear anything else. Generally, GMRS repeaters don't identify themselves. They don't have to according to the rules. Ham radio repeaters do. So when I key up, you're just going to see the received signal strength indicator indicate that we've broken the squelch on the repeater. So I'm just going to say my call sign and, repeater test, and then I'm going to say I'm clear. Okay, and I'll do it with several radios. I'll probably take both these radios with me, and I'll show you it on both radios. So I'm going to go ahead and turn these guys off. I'm going to kill the camera, and next time you see me, we will be about half a mile down the road that way. So I'll be back in just a minute. All right, so I brought two different radios with me. I actually brought a different Wouxun radio. It's hard to see the screen on this thing, but it's got a better receiver. So the Radioddity, I've got this great big Abri antenna on it. I need that great big antenna to make the trip. Now look at the tiny little stubby antenna on that Wouxun. It'll make the trip with that little stubby antenna. So let me go ahead and turn this on. And hopefully you can see the screen on this. It's very hard to see in the sunlight, but our received signal strength indicator is right there. You'll probably hear it break the squelch. WRUE 675 testing. All right, you heard it break the squelch. And let's try the Wouxun with this little tiny antenna on it. Hopefully you can see it. WRUE 675 testing. All right, you can see it break the squelch on that too. So that repeater is, so you see that hill, the repeater's on the other side of that hill. Now, I could not break the squelch on this GM30 with the Nagoya 701G I had on it. It was too small. I had to put the big antenna on it. The Wouxun radio did it with that little tiny stubby Smiley. That's the difference between a okay direct conversion receiver and a super heterodyne. All right, that Wouxun's got a much better receiver in it. So if you're looking for a really good receiver, a superhet's probably the way to go. I'm not going to get into the difference between superhet and direct conversion or homodyne right now, but just this radio's got a better receiver in it. But understand, a pair of these is $70. That radio's like $150 by itself. Okay, so at any rate, you can see I can break the squelch and hit that repeater. That repeater's, I don't know, 7 miles or so that way on the other side of that hill. All right, so that's how you program up a GMRS radio for repeater use. It's pretty straightforward. If you have any questions, go ahead and feel free to leave them in the comments. If there's anything else you want to see me do, let me know. I will do. I'll do one on a little bit more in depth on ham, UHF, VHF repeater use also. I'll do some more GMRS stuff too. But like I said, if there are any other videos you guys want to see, any questions you've got, whatever, just go ahead and let me know, and I'll see what I can do. So at any rate, everybody, hopefully that was informative. Hopefully that helps some people out. Thank you so much for watching. I really do appreciate it. And as always, until next time, 7-3.